Hi, and welcome to this AP Seminar AP Daily video. I'm Stephanie Carter, an AP Seminar teacher at McCracken County High School in beautiful Western Kentucky, and I'm honored to kick off this exciting endeavor with you. We're going to begin with the foundational skill of understand and analyze argument. Of course, we can't cover everything related to understanding and analyzing argument. So what do I hope you can take away from our time together? If you can know how strong readers approach a text and put into practice some strategies strong readers use, I'll know our time was well spent. Let's preview what we're going to learn today. Effective readers read efficiently and purposefully. They do that by determining the value of a source as soon as possible, by reading with a purpose in mind, by practicing consistent reading strategies, and by interacting with the text to support comprehension and analysis. They don't read passively. So I want you to begin by asking, is this text worth my time? Before you invest time in an unworthy source, time you could have spent looking for stronger sources, or so much time that you feel obligated to use a weaker source. Before you spend any time on a new source, I want you to check the author's credentials and the publication's reputation. For example, our text today is Snoozers Are, in fact, Losers. It was written by Maria Konnikova and published in the New Yorker on December 10th, 2013. So what I would like for you to do now is pause here and type Maria Konnikova into a search bar. From the search page, you're going to scan her biography and the titles of her publications. You just want to get the sense that she's an informed voice on something. Don't worry if you're not sure what you're looking for. I'll talk you through it when you come back. Go ahead now and check the author's credentials. Great. You probably found something like this, right? You typed in Maria Konnikova into a search bar, and you might have gotten her website as the first two, and then maybe a Wikipedia, a little bit of Wikipedia information about her here. So let's see what we can learn just from this quick, just cursory glance. It says here on her website that she's a New York Times bestselling author, a journalist, and a professional poker player. So self-described professional poker player. Can I get some support for that? Some support for any of that? Well, over here, a Wikipedia article says that she has a Bachelor of Arts in Psychology and Creative Writing from Harvard and a PhD in Psychology from Columbia. Also down here, I see that she's been nominated for a couple of nonfiction awards. So I think that we can trust that she's an informed voice on at least psychology, maybe creative writing, and maybe poker. So let's now check the publisher's reputation. I want you to pause here and type the New Yorker into a search bar. From the search page, scan its biography, the titles of recent publications. You just want to get the sense that it's a respected publication on some level. For the sake of time, we won't discuss what you learned about the New Yorker, so you're going to need to follow the same basic process we used to determine the credentials of Maria Konnikova to ascertain the reputation of the New Yorker. I'll wait for you here. I trust you agree with me that the New Yorker has garnered some level of respect, and we can proceed with reading this text. So now that you've deemed it worthy, what's next? Well, I'd like for you to practice a 3-read strategy that I use in my classroom with my AP Seminar students. And that consists of the first read, which is to just read around the text. We'll go more in depth on that in a minute. The second read is just the introduction and the end. And the third read is when we ACE it. ACE here stands for argument, claims, and evidence. And again, we'll get more in depth into that later. For now, let's talk about that first read, the read around the text. I want you to read for the title. Titles are critical and they're informative. Keywords in titles are chosen by authors so the text appear in searches. I also want you to look at the subheadings. Subheadings help us understand organization and hint at minor claims, so pay attention to those. I want you to look at pictures and captions. Remember that old cliche of a picture is worth 1,000 words? Well, that lives on in our research. I also want you to look at any graphs and charts. Those are used intentionally to represent data that might be confusing in writing. So go ahead and take a minute, and I want you to pause here and type snoozers are losers, Konnikova, the New Yorker, into a search bar to access the text in its original form. This search will get you out to the New Yorker and to snoozers are losers from 2013. When you get there, I want you to practice a first read around the text, looking at the title, any subheadings, pictures and captions, graphs, and charts. Back so soon? Not a lot there. That's how it happens sometimes. But let's at least look at the title. Snoozers are losers of what exactly, right? Well, let's hope we can get some answers about exactly what snoozers lose from just reading. We're working on our second read. Remember that the second read is just the introduction and the end. Again, you're going to use your subheadings as signals to try to figure out where the introduction begins and ends, and then where the end or the conclusion begins and ends. But you know already, we don't have subheadings in this text. So what I suggest you do is just read a paragraph on each end. But as you're reading, make sure that you keep the title in mind. You want to hang on to that title. Snoozers are in fact losers as you're reading the introduction and the end. So I'm going to pause here. And this time, I want you to type AP Seminar 2015 end of course exam, questions and sources into a search bar. I want you to be able to see the text, this text as it was presented to students in the 2015 end of course. Snoozers are in fact losers was the text that students analyzed in EOC Part A in the year 2015. When you type that into a search bar, one of the first options you'll find should be a PDF with that title, AP Seminar 2015, AP end of course exam questions and sources. And our text begins on page 2 and ends on page 4. We already know not to expect subheadings because those aren't in the original. So we'll have to rely on the paragraph at each end and any clues in the text to determine where the introduction ends and where the conclusion begins. In this case, when you get there, look for the 3 dots or the ellipses, and then notice the one of the consequences of waking up suddenly, which sounds like a minor claim. That's a good place to stop on the introduction. I'll let you sort out where the conclusion begins, but don't fret about being precise. You're going to read the entire article soon enough. Just remember to think about the title as you read through in this second read, just the introduction and the end. I'll wait for you here. Okay, did you find it? I knew you would. What you probably noticed in the introduction was the author's attempt to make the information relatable by pointing out how common it is to hit snooze, and then to hint that doing so can be problematic because of our sleep patterns. You might have also noticed the use of familiar you, in the introduction. How did you decide where to begin on the conclusion? Maybe just the last paragraph? Seems smart, given the previous paragraph ended with a question. Maybe it's answered in the conclusion. In that last paragraph, the author begins with the right idea for waking and ends with some positive consequences of waking the right way. We can begin to answer our question. Snoozers are losers of what? The benefits of a slower waking experience, maybe? Okay, that's a good place to start, right? We've got some idea of where this article is, where it's starting and where it's ending, where this argument is starting and where it's ending. And that gets us to the third read. And the third read is the one in which we're going to ace it, right? Argument, claims, and evidence. And we would truly be a marvel if we could read and annotate an entire article in this one video, but I'm afraid we can't do the third read this time. I'd be honored if you join me again in video 3 to learn more about this last read of our 3-read strategy. But for now, I want to encourage you to at least use the first 2 reads on text that you encounter between now and the time I see you in video 3. Oh, sorry. ACE, argument, claims, and evidence. Okay, so what do I want you to take away from this? I want you to remember the 3-read strategy, at least the first 2 reads of the 3-read strategy. And before you ever even invest any time, I want you to think about trying to determine if a source is worthy of your time. Then, once you've done that, practice the 3-read strategy. The first read around the text, the second read, just the introduction and the end, and then we'll get to that third read so that you can ace it. Thank you so much for your time today, and I look forward to seeing you in videos 2 and 3.